Welcome to Last Call with Jamion Christian. Our guest today, Ashley Howard, a two-time national champion, a big-time friend of the show, going back to Villanova as an assistant, coming back to the place where they won so many championships, former head coach at LaSalle, and again, a great friend. Welcome our guest, Ashley Howard, to the show. Ash, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Jay. Thanks for having me, buddy.
Man, it is great to see you back up on your feet with the energy that I've always known you to have and ready to attack the next task, man. Welcome back to Villanova basketball. I know they're juiced to have you back.
It's exciting, man. It's like coming back home. A lot of familiar faces, working with Kyle Neptune, who, is a brother of mine, and we shared a lot of success together as assistants, and I'm excited to help him, go into this new era of Villanova basketball and help build this culture back up.
I love it. It's going to be fun to see. I mean, I guess you and I go back to 2009, 2010 when you were at Drexel and I was at William & Mary.
Old school CAA days, man. CAA days. A lot of great coaches came out of that league, man, from back in those times.
Oh, it's we go back to our era. I did it at one point. You have Caputo, who's at George Washington. Obviously, you have yourself, you have myself, we have Mike Rhodes, Will Wade, Mike Jones, Tony Skinn now, who was playing in the league at the time, who's now the head coach.
Yep.
I mean, it's just an incredible list of guys who we were all working against, competing against to become head coaches one day. And that kind of speaks to how good the league was at the time, not just the VCU guys or the guys that we kind of named, but I'm sure we missed a few really, really talented guys in the CA during those days.
No, the league was really, really good. And obviously there were great head coaches in the league as well that we were working underneath and learning from. So, that was a great time to be in that league. And it was really cool to see, everybody as we followed each other's journeys and where we've evolved to, over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I want to ask you about Bruiser Flint, who what people don't realize about that time is like, Bruiser was unbelievable. Like that Drexel teams were physical. They were aggressive. They always had guys they had like one or two guys that could really shoot it, but they were known for their physicality. Mm-hmm. What was it like kind of coming through under Bruiser, watching how he was able to make that progression in the league? I'd love to talk a little bit about his influence and some of the stuff you learned under him.
Well, Brew was probably the most influential person on my coaching career. He started me as a student assistant at Drexel. Once I had to stop playing due to, I was diagnosed with a heart condition, and Brew, he said, listen, man, like I'm gonna help you transition into coaching and took me under his wing. The one thing I'll say about Brew is, man, unbelievable person, unbelievable leader. So that's why his players always played hard for him, right? Because everybody knew that he had their back 100%, right? So he was able to push you and challenge you in certain ways that, other coaches couldn't because they didn't invest in the relationships. And I thought that's what made Bruce special, man. Like, he was demanding, but he loved and cared for all of his guys. And he has that Philly personality, right? So like, I feel like his teams always took on his personality, right? Where, we played hard, we defended first, we rebounded second, and then, our offense, came. But we took a great deal of pride in just being, the tougher team and a team that was going to grind it out. We could win ugly if we wanted to. And it was great learning from him as a young coach coming up through the business.
I'll tell you on our side of it, trying to prepare for those teams. Mm-hmm. Right. You're sort of like, you're looking at the schedule. We're saying 2 weeks from now, you're going to your strength coach going 2 weeks from now, we're going to be in a battle. So we've got to start preparing for not just that game, but what that's going to do to us after. I think I went back and looked and I was like, the game after the Drexel games, there were more upsets for those games after. Like, they might have got you all on a Wednesday, but they were going to earn it. And on Saturday, they might get upset by somebody who was a little bit lower in the league because of how physical you guys played. And I always secretly, as a guy who loves to go, I love that physicality because there's nothing you can do about it. How do you were there, you saw it. How does one go about establishing that sort of physicality outside of the relationship And then my second question is, how do you then go to a Villanova style where toughness is premium, but skill is also, you have a unique perspective having to do both?
So the reality was, I thought Brew coming from UMass, um, during the era where, he was at UMass during like the pinnacle of UMass basketball under Cal, and then he was able to inherit the job once Cal moved on. But like Brew was used to coaching like big time players and pretty much a high major team, right? So what he did was he recruited, the big guys, big physical players, right? And toughness, right? So like he recruited some tough dudes, man. Like his first point guard was Bashir Mason, who's the head coach of St. Peter's right now. And like Bosh was like the epitome of tough, right? As a freshman, he was like defensive player of the year in the league. So I thought Brew recruited towards that. Chaz Crawford, Frank Elegar, those dudes were a presence inside. And then, he inherited a guy named Robert Battle, right? And Battle was one of my teammates, and Battle was just like two-time defensive player of the year in the CAA, physical shot blocker, and the game was so different then, man. Like you like literally we probably set a moving screen every possession, getting our shooters open. But I think Brew tailored his style and his recruiting strategy towards having a physical team. Even in my last couple of years there, like we had Sammy Givens, Daryl McCoy, and Darte Ruffin. Like we were massive on the front line. And that made life a lot easier for those shooters that you talk about, because we always had big physical guys that were screening for them, and then because we had those big physical guys, a significant part of our game plan was attacking the offensive glass, right? So screening, attacking the offensive glass, and then when you had a guy like Sammy Givens, who was a load inside, then it really gave you a dynamic inside out game. So I really thought Brew had a model of how he wanted to play, and he recruited towards that. When I made the transition to Villanova, the one thing that was consistent was, playing hard, defending, rebounding, being first, right? So, just the habits, right? And we, as coaches, we always talk about building habits, right? So, one of the habits that Brew always, talked about was like, yo, man, we always want to be the first team to the floor. We always took pride in, getting the 50-50 balls. We always took pride in taking charges and things like that. And, those are, some of the, key, elements that made Villanova really good defensively. Was, we played tough. We were scrappy. We dove on the floor. We took charges first. That was our priority first, right? And then, offense would come. Even though it was a different offensive style, the main points of emphasis for Brew and Jay Wright were both like, yo, defend and rebound first, and then everything else takes care of itself.
Yeah. Obviously I've played against a Villanova team, so I know how, incredibly hard. I mean, I think I told you this story about Archie. We're down, I think, 24 points and 4 minutes left against Villanova in a bye game scenario. And you were at Villanova at the time, and you're there, and I'm on the sideline standing up. We were down 20 some at the half. But it's 4 minutes left in the game, and there's a loose ball on the sideline, and most guys just let it go out of bounds. Archie goes flying. I think I leap over top of him, flying into the side of the basket, side of the scorer's table. And it was our ball. I think it went off you guys, but he just gave max effort. And I remember in that moment thinking, this is why they win.
Mm-hmm.
Because most guys just let it go out of bounds. It's 4 minutes left. The game's in hand. That's the difference.
No, I mean, we talk about habits, man. Right. So, you don't pick and choose when you go after that loose ball, right? It's just, it becomes your instinct. And then if you create the habits amongst your team and you have multiple guys that think that way, then that's what, creates the desired culture that you want to have.
Yeah, I love it. Talk about LaSalle, some of the things you learned while being there.
So one thing I learned about my experience at LaSalle is really kind of the expect the unexpected, right? As a head coach, you may go into a situation with, blueprint. You feel like, okay, these are the things that I have to do in order to be successful. And then nothing ever works out exactly how you expect, right? The biggest, challenges that you have as a head coach is like you are constantly making decisions all the time, right? And a lot of the things that you worry about never happen. A lot of the things that you can never even think of are going, they happen, like a pandemic, you know what I'm saying? And like how you navigate that. So, during my time at LaSalle, I think one of the biggest things that I learned is the importance of having like a really good support system around you, people to bounce ideas off of, and people that are in the foxhole with you, right? And I think I had that, right? Felt really good about the guys that I was working with, and you know what? I thought that all things considered, we gave it a great effort, and hopefully I'll get another opportunity again, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think you and I've had a lot of conversations through the course of the year, and I don't think people outside of guys who've been through it understand the challenge, not just of beating some of the top tier teams in the league,
Mm-hmm.
but in trying to establish your culture when you're not going to get immediate results.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, you were coming from Villanova, I was coming from VCU, a couple different places before coming into those opportunities. And it's like our best players are still playing right now on some top 25 teams.
Correct.
And the best teams in that league in the A10 were able to keep those players, right? They're able to keep those guys. When you look back on that, like, and we can have a really open discussion about this, like, what do you feel like makes it the most challenging part, making that progression from the bottom of a league to the top of a league in a really good league?
So it's funny that you say that. I always thought that it's a challenge to believe in something that you can't see right in front of you. We know exactly, the vision that we have. We know that, guys, like if we commit ourselves to doing, X, Y, and Z, that we'll see the desired results that we want. But as young people going through the transition for the first time, they don't have the experience that we have, right? So, it's more challenging. You could play unbelievably well at VCU, and you could take a L and you could play well, and really personally for your program, that's a win, right? But that doesn't help you on the win-loss column. And then the next day you got to play Davidson, which is a completely different style of play, right? Established program, great coach, right? And what hurt you versus VCU is probably turning the ball over, playing too fast. That's not going to hurt you versus Davidson. It's a completely different game plan, right? So now I think one of the keys to, and you spoke to it, is getting to the point where you have an experienced team that understands what's most important to you, right? And who's been through it, right?
Yeah.
So the challenge is at that mid-major level is retaining your squad so that you can have that continuity, so that you get to the point now where everybody feels good about getting to the point where, what, we've been through this together, not just like, all right, one guy's been through it, now you're bringing in a couple other guys and now it's new to them. Like if you can have a group of guys collectively that have been through it, I think that's what gives you the best opportunity to be successful. When I was at Villanova in 2016, the two previous years we lost in the round of 32, right? 2016, Ryan Arcidiacono, Josh Hart, Chris Jenkins, Darren Hilliard, Phil Booth had been through it. So when we got to that round of 32 game versus Iowa, those guys said, you know what, man, we've been here before. It ain't happening this time. You know what I'm saying? Like we're going to get it done. We know the mistakes that we made, and now we'll have the opportunity to correct those mistakes, right? So, it's about getting to the point where you have that continuity. Honestly, for me at LaSalle, it was navigating, just putting together the right roster of guys that were going to be committed to doing things our way. And a lot of times at the mid-major level, it's hard to build that out, without having, adequate time to do so. Right.
Yeah.
So, if you look at, you look at a guy like Mark Schmidt, right, who's been at Bonnie's forever, right? He had a great opportunity to build that thing over time, right? It didn't happen overnight for him. And, I think, that's one of the things in our business now. I think, it's like we live in a microwave society. Everybody wants like instant results. But the reality is, it doesn't necessarily work that way.
Yeah, it's as we're kind of working through it, it's felt like, man, we had guys like Jamion Nelson Jr., we had Jamison Battle. I mean, these guys are like, I went through it. I think we're gonna have 4 guys next year that played at GW over my time that will be in the NBA draft conversation next year, right?
Sure.
And we just weren't able to get them all together at the same time. And I'll tell you this. I don't know if you felt this. I should ask you this. We go play at Dayton, and Dayton is sold out. An hour before the game. And I remember walking onto the floor and thinking, everything here is made for these players to be bought in to be here. Everything. And I remember thinking, everything where we are is made to feel our players feel like they don't belong here. And I was like, I just felt that when I walked in there. I said, Jesus, like, did you ever feel similar to that or something? Because VCU, Dayton, St. Louis, those places are rocking. And when you're trying to build it, your place is not rocking.
So I felt like one of the things that would happen during the A-10 season is once you start traveling and seeing other teams' arenas and facilities and, fan bases and support for us in particular, because I thought we were like really at one of the bottom teams in terms of like facilities or whatever. I just felt like now you're re-recruiting your guys. You know what I'm saying? You go to VCU, you go to Dayton, like you said, St. Louis, and honestly, even for us, like, going to GW, you know what I mean? Like at times it's like we're on the same level. And, we try to use it as a chip, right? So, we thought Gola could be one of the toughest places to play if your gym is sold out every night. You know what I'm saying? But if your gym isn't sold out and you don't have that home court advantage, then, it makes it a little bit more challenging, right? Because, now for us, our guys, like if you're playing in an empty gym, guys make mistakes, coach yells at you. Now guys, they feel, that sense of like, embarrassment. You're getting coached hard in front of your friends and your family. So those are one of the things that I thought was a challenge. But, there were times where honestly, I thought we played some of our best games in those atmospheres. Right. I think, we played one of our best games of the year at Dayton. We battled at VCU, even though we didn't beat them at the Siegel Center. I thought we played some of our most inspired basketball there. So it's something to like those environments and those atmospheres. I think that's one of the advantages of being in the A-10 is that, student athletes get a chance to play in those types of environments. But again, like you just have to figure out what your niche is going to be, how you're going to sell it to your team, and really, try to create a mentality that, none of that stuff matters. You just got to go out there and compete. But that's easier said than done when you're in the middle of a long season.
Yeah, it was I felt like in year 3, probably right in the middle of A-10 play, I said, I think we're starting to kind of figure this out a little bit. That I felt like it was just it's a really challenging league, not just because there's good teams, but like you mentioned with Davidson, they all play different styles. And so you got to have some good versatility. I think so I would say there's 2 things. If you're an emerging team, you got to have good versatility until you can get the pieces that you need to be one thing. Like VCU is one thing, Dayton is one thing.
Mhm.
But to get those pieces, you've got to be an established identity. And when you're building it, you're not yet established.
Correct. And the other thing too, and I think this is, obviously for you coming in, I thought you did a great job at GW, of identifying the pieces that you needed to be successful, right? Because you had head coaching experience. You coached in the NCAA tournament, right? You won championships at the Division I level. For me, I was still trying to figure it out. Like, okay, coming from Villanova, coaching the best players, the most intelligent players, the toughest players. Essentially our last year at Villanova, we had, 7 pros, like 7 NBA, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Going from there to LaSalle and then trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to make this work, right? That was the challenge for me. Do I try to replicate what we did at Villanova, or do I scale back and then like see LaSalle for what it is, right? And then try to create the best version of LaSalle that I could create, right? And that was the balance, and that's experience, right?
Yeah.
So, that's one of the things. Like, I'm better for that experience of me and the head coach of LaSalle is just understanding that there's so many different ways to do it, and like you just have to look at each individual situation for what it is, and then figure out like, all right, man, like here, this is probably the best way to do things here, right? And
Yeah.
it's for me, I feel like I may have tried to, fit a square into a circle at LaSalle, but it's all part of our growth as coaches and
Yeah.
our development, right? So it was a great experience for me to go through.
Yeah, and I felt like we played the last year we played. We had a chance to play at GW, and I thought, man, these guys are really talented. Like a lot of the guys that you coach have gone on the other places like Providence and NC State, and they've had like a lot of success, and they've really played well, being key parts of teams. And that's why I say, that like you hit on it, the experience is so important, because even if you're a talented player, there's nothing like going through it to learn how to do it better.
Nah, no doubt. It's not like going through it, but like, again, going through it collectively. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like when you talk about those Villanova guys, all those groups went through it collectively.
You brought Jalen Brunson in, who was just like he's just like the ultimate basketball player, in my mind, just in terms of like IQ, work ethic, toughness, skill. So you bring him in as a freshman with those other guys that have been through it. Like, you got a really good team. And then we returned pretty much everybody except Arch and Daniel Shefu, and we had another great year in 2017. Then you lose Chris Jenkins and Josh Hart, Darryl Reynolds. And then you have a whole group of guys that have been through it collectively in 2018 with Jalen, Mikhail, Dante, Eric, and Omari, with some other young guys. And, it was just something to be said for that continuity. And the reality is, in today's climate, like, I don't know if it's realistic to even think that you'll be able to create that, right? So now as coaches, we have to figure out a way to pivot and in a short turnaround, in a short period of time, build that cohesion amongst new pieces, that you're bringing in, whether it's high school guys or transfer portal guys, to create that same continuity in a quick turnaround.
Yeah, I interviewed for a couple head coaching jobs this offseason, and a few of them, 4 out of the 5, would ask the question, how do you get the players to stay?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, man, that's probably the wrong question.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not making anybody do anything.
Correct.
Right?
Right.
What is the right question?
I think the right question is, what is your strategy every year to put the best team on the floor? Because that's what it is, right? So like every year, everybody has to figure out the best way that they can, put the best team on the floor. It's just like pros, right? Like now, like, every year, professional sports, they look at, they assess where their team is, they assess where their weaknesses are, they try to fill those holes, right? Um, if you're able to maintain your roster and have some continuity, that's a really significant thing, right? I think one of the most impressive things that Kyle did here at Villanova this past year was like he kept everybody, right? And obviously here at Villanova, our guys come here for more than just basketball, right? The basketball program, speaks for itself, but the school here, the network here, the life after basketball piece, the education that you get here at Villanova, is second to none, right? So, when you make the decision to come here, you're coming here to be a part of something bigger than yourself and more than just basketball. Not every place offers that, right? So you may
Yeah.
go to some places and you're just strictly saying like, okay, I'm here to play ball. The academics are cool. I'm really, taking up a program that I really have no interest in, but I don't have any other options. I'm here to hoop. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So now when the opportunity to go to another school is presented, for any reason, like there's nothing that's stopping or preventing these kids from just going and exploring something else, right? So
Yeah.
that's the challenge in today's culture.
So this off season, I had a chance to kind of go and consult and with a few programs in the country and sit and watch practice and watch games and pregame. And something really dawned on me that you've just hit on. It's different when you're at a place where the kids want to be
Mm-hmm.
versus when you're at a place where they had to be,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That changes their experience, but also changes how you can coach them because you have something that they want, but you don't have to put it in front of them every single day. They just experience it.
No doubt, man. I think that goes for coaches, players, administrators,
Yeah.
faculty, staff. When you're at a place where you feel good about what you're a part of, and everybody feels good about the environment and they love coming to work every day, you give more of yourself, right? When you're in an environment where you look around and there's not as much pride of being a part of something bigger than yourself, right? Then it's very, very easy to just think as an individual and think, okay, well, what's best for me here, right? Is being in this situation in my best interest? Because I'm looking around and like nobody else necessarily cares to a higher level, right? I think that's what makes special places, right? And even more so like than the winning and the the facilities and the travel and the exposure and all that. If you have an environment, a place where the people in that place take unbelievable pride in what they're a part of, and now you have a real, sense of community, it's harder to leave that as opposed to if you're in an environment where it's like, okay, like everybody is in that space to try to get to their next opportunity, right?
Yeah.
I think when and there's way more situations like that than there are places where there's like real culture. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, when you find that, and if you have the opportunity to be a part of that, that's something special.
It reminds me, they did this study, and they did it in an office setting. If you put a person who's an average performer, uh, 15 feet away, their desk 15 feet away from a person who's a high performer, their workplace productivity increases 10%. If you put them, that same person who's average, if you put them beside someone who is underperforming, their workplace potential goes down 15%.
Mm,
So it's like an incredible swing of when you're around productive, motivated people versus when you're not.
Mm-hmm.
And you know this as well as anyone. At the very top of that pyramid of success, it's the margins that you win or lose with.
No
I mean,
doubt.
those percentages get you. You know, you're trying to be in the top 1% of all college basketball to win a national title. So that 10 to 15% is a huge swing.
No doubt. And we talk about all the time. We say iron sharpens iron,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, one of the things that, I always felt made our teams at Villanova highly successful, made our teams at Drexel really successful was the competition every day in practice, right? So if you're in a competitive environment, it just brings out the best in you. If you are in an environment where like there's not much competition, every day, like, okay, I can take practice off or
Yeah.
regardless of my performance, like I'm still playing, then that's not preparing you and helping you, reach your fullest potential.
Yeah. I want to give you a name. I'd like for you to give me the thing that they do best. Jalen Brunson.
Work,
Mikal Bridges.
defend,
Jay Wright.
lead,
Kyle Neptune.
listen,
Ashley Howard.
love.
Oh, I like it. I like it. I like it. Um, no, I appreciate, man. You know, I'm always rooting for you at the highest level. You mean, hopefully this year we grew even closer, but I've always felt like we were really close. And a shout out to Bashir Mason too for a great head coach at Wagner, now St. Peter's. You gave him a shout out earlier in the show. I didn't give his proper flowers. He got them dudes playing football at St. Peter's, I'm sure, in practice. So he's a physical guy there.
No doubt, man. He's like the ultimate. He was like the ultimate Drexel basketball player, man. Like he set the standard for what it was to be a Drexel guard.
I love it. We do this thing on Last Call where it's the end of the night. The bartender's rung the bell. It's the last call of the night. That's what we call last call. To the left of you, you have someone who's retired. To the right of you, you have someone who's still actively working, no family. What two people do you want beside you at the end of the night?
I would say the retired person that I would want next to me would be Kobe Bryant.
Ooh, I like it. Why Mamba?
Just his entire mentality, work ethic, perspective, drive. The way he evolved as a father. After retiring, shifting gears and then becoming like the ultimate family person. He would be the guy that I want beside me, to my left. And to my right, as an up and comer, I would want Jamion.
Ooh.
Just because like I'm big on, as coaches, man, like we're big on, making an impact, right? And I feel like he's the type of person that I would gravitate towards,
Yeah.
to mentor, to help, to give perspective to, somebody that has unbelievable amount of talent. Like as coaches, like we all, take a great deal of pride in just trying to help all of our pupils just reach their max potential and kind of avoid some of the pitfalls that has fell into, right? So, I would say Kobe and Ja, if I had the choice.
I mean, Ja Morant, I'm glad you said that. He's just a person that you just want to wrap your arm around.
Correct.
I mean, because it's not just it is his talent, because if he wasn't this talented, people probably wouldn't want to wrap their arms around him. But it's the joy that he exemplifies in the game. I mean, he's an incredible player, but that joy is so rare.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I definitely feel that,
Yeah. He would be the one guy that I would definitely gravitate towards and want to spend some time with.
I love it. Well, Coach, I appreciate you so much. I'm proud to call you your brother. I appreciate you jumping on the show and giving us some time today.
No, man, I appreciate you having me, man. Great to see all the wonderful things you're doing, and hope to see you soon.
You will. Thank you for joining us on The Last Call, powered by Speakeasy, where careers grow through relationships and relationships grow through Speakeasy. We hope you enjoyed it, and we look forward to connecting with you soon.